Sadie Cohen, Bounty Hunter, Part 9. Previously, in Part 8, The Outlaws' Council. In the dust and heat of a half-collapsed shack, Sadie, Clem, Tilly, and Millie drew up a dangerous map of futures. Millie staked her claim with land of her own, swearing it could be a safe haven. Tilly swore the stolen documents had to reach the east. Clem vowed to stick by Sadie through the storm ahead. And Sadie? She dared to picture a home that might last. But havens crack, promises cut deep, and Blackspur Railroad isn't through with them yet. Next stop, betrayal, bullets, and a devil with a ledger. Content advisory. This chapter features railroad corruption, tense confrontations, and the exploitation of immigrant labor. There are scenes of sharp dialogue in a public bathhouse, hints of violence past and present, and the revelation of Blackspur's bloody ledger. Themes of disability, queer identity, and systemic injustice run throughout. The Devil's Ledger by Glory Fink. I wasn't there when Millie walked into Badass, but I can picture it clear enough. She had a way of carrying herself that made her leg brace look less like a weakness and more like a declaration. Clack, step, like the tolling of a bell that dared you to ignore it. Folks did, of course. They always tried to pretend they didn't see the limp, the brace, or the sharpness in her eyes. That was their mistake. She pushed through the steam-heavy doorway of Chang's bathhouse, where Albin Chang ran the place with an eye for profit and a heart that, depending on who you asked, beat softer than a banker's but harder than a sheriff's gavel. The tiled room smelled of eucalyptus and lye soap, and a handful of men in rolled-up sleeves were cleaning after a long shift. "Mr. Chang," Millie said, planting her cane like a judge calling court to order. "We need to talk." Albin looked up from his ledger, his dark brows knitting. He didn't like being called out in front of customers. "Miss Millie," he said carefully, "this is no place for a lady." Millie snorted. "I ain't here for a soak. I'm here to tell you that every man you've got working for Blackspurs needs to quit before the company leaves them high and dry. The feds are fixing to cancel their license. You think Blackspur's going to pay wages after that?" A few of the men paused mid-scrub. One muttered something sharp in Cantonese, and another spat into the drain. Albin flicked his hand to shoo them back to their work, but the room was listening. "You come in here with rumors?" he asked, voice low. "Not rumors, warnings." Millie leaned on her cane, chin high. "I've seen how Blackspur treats folks they think they own. You know as well as I do they'll work your men till their bones break, then walk off with every last cent they're owed." Albin's jaw worked, but he didn't argue. He was too smart for that. What he did do was close his ledger and set his pen down, slow and deliberate. "You put me in a dangerous place, Miss Millie," he said finally. "If Blackspur hears me telling men to walk away, they'll shut me down, or worse." Millie stepped closer, and when she spoke, it wasn't just her voice. It was the sound of every night she'd lain awake beside me, railing against a world that chewed folks up and spit 'em out. If you don't warn them, they'll lose everything. Their pay, their work, maybe their lives. You know what side of this you need to be on." For a long moment, the only sound was the dripping of water on tile. Then Albin sighed through his nose, sharp as a blade being sheathed. "I'll see that the word gets around," he said. "But if Blackspur comes knocking, it'll be on your conscience." Millie tilted her head, all sass and fire. "I reckon I've got enough conscience to carry it." If Millie was the heart that beat steady beside mine, then Tilly was the storm that never stayed still. By the time Clem and I saddled up for our own hunt, Tilly had already boarded the eastbound train headed for Memphis with fire in her blood and a pistol tucked inside her traveling coat. I only know the shape of her journey from the scraps she let slip later, but I can see it plain enough. Tilly leaning back in a velvet-lined seat, hat brim low, her sharp cheekbones catching the lamplight as she scrawled notes in that quick hand of hers. She wasn't writing love letters, though God knows she'd written me plenty of those once, but the bones of an exposé sharp enough to draw blood. Samuel Kane, the name she'd once worn like an armor, was about to be reborn in ink. And the further east she went, the more dangerous her gamble became. Blackspur's reach was long and their pockets deep. The newspaper men had a habit of turning up drowned when they printed the wrong truths. But Tilly had never been one to flinch from danger. She courted it the way some folks courted sweethearts. Reckless, headlong, and grinning at the risk. I like to think of her stepping off the train in Memphis, the city gaslit and noisy, her boots striking cobblestone like a drumbeat. She would have carried herself tall, shoulders square, daring any soul to question her right to be there. Somewhere in the bowels of that city, presses waited to roll, ready to spill Blackspur's secrets across every front page Samuel Kane could lay his hands on. I couldn't hear the clatter of type or smell the ink from where I was, out in the desert, but I felt it all the same. The sense of something stirring, some great tide turning. And I knew that when Tilly set her pen to paper, she wouldn't just write a story. She'd light a fuse. Clem and I found Jeremiah Finch camped out in a box canyon, the kind you'd ride right past if you didn't know it was there. He built himself a fire pit of flat stones and a lean-to out of canvas that had seen better days. A man on the run doesn't bother with comforts, just with cover. His eyes caught the light before his face did, sharp and restless, darting like a fox sizing up the hounds. The bounty posters has gotten his jawline right, but missed the weariness in him, the way a man looks when he's seen too much of what blood money buys. "Howdy, Tex. You rode a long way to find me," he said, voice low and even, one hand close to the pistol at his side. "I don't suppose you're here for more poetry." "Poster said you were worth hundreds," I replied, keeping my hand close to my gun. "But I've learned not to trust everything I read." Clem leaned easy in the saddle beside me, though I could tell he was coiled like a spring. "Question is," he drawled, "are you the devil the posters make you out to be, or just another soul Blackspur chewed up and spit out?" Finch's mouth twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a sneer. "I worked for them. That part's true. Thought I was just guarding payroll wagons and chasing off claim jumpers. Took me a little too long to realize I was guarding coffins waiting to be filled." The fire snapped between us. He stared into it like the flames might burn his memories clean. "Blackspur don't build railroads, they build graves. Men who talk too much, camps that wouldn't sell, even whole families gone. That was when I quit. Some things you can't wash off, no matter how much whiskey you pour over them." I studied him, the way his fingers twitched near his gun, not with threat, but with a habit. A man who lived too long looking over his shoulder. "So what's the truth with you?" I asked. "Are you a bounty worth collecting or an ally worth keeping?" Finch lifted his gaze to mine, fox eyes glinting hard in the firelight. "That depends. You aim to catch me or Blackspur?" Clem exhaled slow through his nose, the way he did when the stakes got too high for poker talk. I didn't answer right away. Truth was, I hadn't decided yet. Jeremiah didn't answer me right away either. He just stared into the fire, shadows stretching long across his face. Then, slow as a Sunday confession, he reached under his bedroll and pulled out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. The thing hit the dirt with a heavy thud, like it carried more weight than paper ought to. "Go on," he said, nudging it toward me with the toe of his boot. I crouched down, peeled back the oilcloth, and saw neat stacks of ledgers and contracts, some stamped with Blackspur's seal, others written in a rough hand that smelled of whiskey and gunpowder. And at the very top, lists of names. Too many names. "What am I looking at?" I asked, though my gut already knew. Jeremiah's eyes caught the firelight, sharp and shining. "Every man Blackspur paid, every camp they torched, every grave they dug and called it progress. I kept copies. Figured someday someone would come looking for the truth." The night felt suddenly tighter around us, like the canyon walls had closed in. Clem shifted beside me, his hand brushing mine as if to remind me I wasn't alone. I folded the oilcloth shut, heart pounding. What he said was true. I held in my hands the kind of proof that could bring down an empire or get us all killed before dawn. Jeremiah leaned back, his mouth set in a line that wasn't quite a smile. "You think you're hunting me. Truth is, I'm waiting for someone like you to hunt Blackspur." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because in that moment I knew the truth. Fox-eyed Finch wasn't the quarry. He was the key. As Clem and I walked away from the canyon fire, the ledgers heavy in my saddlebag, a thought coiled tight in my chest. Fox-eyed Finch might not be the devil on the wanted poster, but he sure knew where the devil was buried. Coming soon in Part 10, Justice Rides the Rails. Blackspur's iron grip begins to crack. With Fox-eyed Finch at their side, Sadie and Clem ride into danger, striking straight at the heart of the railroad's crooked empire. A daring sabotage threatens Blackspur's blood-stained profits. Hundreds of Chinese laborers walk off the line, turning their backs on tyranny to follow a new trail towards freedom. And when the U.S. Marshals thunder into town, the lawless Judge Bart Greaves, Sheriff Reuben Murdoch, and Blackspur's ruthless foreman find themselves staring down the long arm of justice. But beware, the more you wound a beast, the more dangerous it becomes. Blackspur won't go quietly, and neither will the shadows lurking around it. Thanks for riding with Sadie Cohen Bounty Hunter. Your support keeps this outlaw tale alive and helps queer voices thrive. If you've enjoyed this chapter, you could tap the heart button, leave a comment, Sadie's always listening for fresh gossip, or you could even buy us a coffee or a meal if you're feeling generous and you have the means. We are listed on Ko-fi, Venmo, and Cash App. Your support keeps these stories alive, helps queer voices thrive, and gives you a front row seat to new worlds. Join us today and become part of the glorious community. Want front row seats to the next showdown? Be sure to subscribe to Glorious Magazine and don't miss Part 10, Justice Rides the Rails. Stay connected with the Coffee Bunny Crafters Cafe. You can subscribe for cozy chaos, creative magic, and behind-the-scenes updates. You can also find me technically on Blue Sky. No comment on my state getting me, can't even access Blue Sky. But anyway, I am also still on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and now TikTok. Looking forward to seeing you, and thank you again for supporting our works. Goodbye.